Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. If you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page, and please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI Podcast episode, I talk with Rebecca Ward about her book, The Paper Tiger Syndrome: How to Liberate Yourself from the Illusion of Fear. Rebecca Ward, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
I am so pleased to be here, John.
It is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from California. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about your book, The Paper Tiger Syndrome: How to Liberate Yourself from the Illusion of Fear. I think that's a fantastic title. I'm really excited to learn more about the book and the key messages therein. Before we get started, I just wanted to share Rebecca's bio with everybody. Rebecca Ward is an American therapist, author, and executive coach. She has nearly 30 years of combined experience in management, consulting, and executive coaching. More recently, Rebecca has added author to her competencies with her new book, which we'll be discussing today. She is particularly interested in helping others and leaders in particular learn the personal, professional, and systematic beliefs of regulating their nervous system. Again, a pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with me or my audience by way of your background and personal context before we dive on in?
No, I mean, I would say one distinction for me is that, as you mentioned, I'm a therapist and an executive coach. Most coaches are not also therapists.
Sure.
So that kind of puts me in a unique position to help across the board. There's no limitations to the work that I can do with my clients.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that is an important distinction. It's a whole different thing to go through the whole process of becoming a certified therapist than being an executive coach, for sure.
Yes.
Well, okay, let's go ahead and dive in and tell us before we even talk about what Paper Tiger is, because I'm curious. I want you to tell us just a little bit about the origin story behind this book. Why this book? Why now? Why is it important for us?
Yeah. So, well, I think it's important for everybody to understand that, regardless of where you are in, what position, power you have, everybody is a leader. And in my case, I have been through quite a bit in my own personal life. And as a result of all the things that I've been through, which I talk about in the first chapter of the book, many people said to me, you've got to write your book. You got to write this book because you can help other people overcome stress and trauma and, things that have happened in the past to them. So I finally decided at the beginning of COVID to take on this task. And it was perfect timing to just sort of focus my attention on getting the book published and out there to help people.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think many people had these types of COVID projects, didn't they? When we had an opportunity for some reset and some reflection and to do, perhaps things we thought about doing, but just didn't really take the chance to do it. So I congratulate you on that. It's no small feat to go through the harrowing process of writing a book, especially a book like this. But I appreciate that. And I know there's so much great content here that we're going to be unpacking that's going to really be able to help people. All right. Why don't we define a few things? If you can explain for us a little bit, Paper Tiger first. I'm really interested in Paper Tiger and the Paper Tiger syndrome. Then we can go further.
Yeah, sure. So paper tiger actually comes from the communist movement. Mao Zedong was the first person to use that term in reference to some conflict that he was experiencing with the United States, and the United States kept threatening to attack. And he said, "Oh, it's just a paper tiger," meaning it's a false threat. They're not going to do anything. And that term, the paper tiger, took hold in our social systems and our societies, and became sort of the catchphrase for anything that is an illusion of danger, that is in fact innocuous. So I took that term, the paper tiger, and added this term syndrome, because I think this is the paper tiger syndrome is something that all human beings, regardless of culture, regardless of position in our culture, struggle with this illusion of fear, which is the part of the subtitle, How to Liberate Yourself from the Illusion of Fear. And I am so passionate about this topic of fear and how much it is running us every day without us even knowing. Some form of fear is running how we think, feel, and act in life. And I talk about that in the book in great detail. But what the point of this paper tiger syndrome and the idea of the book is to help people make the distinction between a real threat or a real tiger, make the distinction between that, and have the nervous system act automatically. The autonomic nervous system will act automatically on your behalf when there is an imminent threat in your space, which is more rare today than it was in primitive times when saber-toothed tigers were lurking in the grass all the time. Our primitive ancestors had to deal with real tigers all the time. So making a distinction between a real tiger and a paper tiger, the illusion of fear, an innocuous perception of what fear is, which in the modern world are things like pressures at work, difficult conversations, deadlines, traffic, can cause a stress response in our bodies that is a perception of fear. We don't think of it in those terms, but it is a constant in our daily lives. Anxiety, depression, stress, these are paper tigers that we need to work on regulating our nervous system to overcome, to liberate ourselves from that. And that there's so much benefit to overcoming these perceived fears when you have a system that's constantly under stress. And like, as an example, 2/3 of all Americans have some kind of stress disease connection. So there's a significant improvement to our overall physical and mental health when we have a regulated nervous system, when we're not operating from a place of fear all the time. We'll make better decisions, big and small. We won't be making decisions from a place of fear anymore. So this is really what I would consider the true pandemic of our time. We've been dealing with this for centuries, since the dawn of humankind. And we're at this stage right now where it's becoming more and more critical that we overcome our stress responses, because this old primitive wiring that we have isn't designed for the modern world. Our bodies are not designed for the pace in which we go, the demands that are upon us all the time. So we have to learn how to build capacity and build resilience to be able to overcome stress and have a system that is operating in service of us.
Yeah, so much you said there that is fantastic, and I love this idea of paper tigers, and as you describe it as a syndrome, I also see this just being so prevalent. So I think that's apt. And I was going to ask about illusion of fear. I think you described it quite well. The reality is, like you said, we all have very real threats, very real dangers in our lives. We all have very real trauma that we've experienced. We all have our stuff, our baggage, right? So it's not about suggesting that all of that is fake and that we just need to put on a happy face and just be Pollyanna-ish. That's not what we're talking about at all.
No.
But it's recognizing that there is a distinction between the real threats facing us and just the everyday things that happen to us that trigger that fight or flight response, that just is ingrained in our wiring and our psychological evolution as a species. And so recognizing those things, I think, is the first step of what can impact us so that we can mitigate it and we can take steps to counteract those things. And I like what, really what you were saying from the very beginning is part of this is just a mindset shift. It's just to be able to recognize that, yes, there are things within our control. There are things outside of our control. Yes, there are things that are real threats. There are things that aren't necessarily the same kinds of threats that maybe we perceive them to be. And to have our lives dictated out of fear and to respond and to act out of fear and to make decisions out of fear usually will not get us to the same productive, positive place that we can get to if we can recognize things for what they are and react to them accordingly, and even be proactive to those types of things.
Yes, absolutely. And I'd also add that this, in addition to it being a mindset shift, it's also about working with the nervous system, which is in our bodies. We, in our modern world, we are rewarded for our minds and what we think and our intellect, but the body often gets ignored, and that is unfortunately that is the reason why so many people have stress and anxiety, because they don't know how to work with their nervous system, work with their body to overcome that. So we have to deepen the relationship between the mind and the nervous system to be able to overcome fear. I think that's one of the differences between the work I do with my clients and other executive coaches, is that I'm working on the entire person, the entire self, to overcome whatever is holding them back. And oftentimes, what's holding them back is not just a stress response in the moment. It's also about, what they've carried into their adult lives from their childhood. So, the developmental stressors, the traumas from childhood, even if you don't think they are running you, there's a good chance that something from just about every person's childhood is impacting them in their adult lives. And that's the part that I care about. Is it's not about unpacking our entire past. It's about being really precise and kind of surgical about the past. Where in your past are there events or people or stressors or trauma that are still affecting your ability to function in the present moment? That's what we care about. And we get really specific about those moments, those events. And I have this way of helping people. It's kind of magical, John. When we get to that level of repair, repairing our past, renegotiating our memories, it's astounding what that can do for people. It's almost hard to describe. And I can give you an example of one if you'd like, but there's just so much impact working with our past traumas.
Yeah. And if I can just reiterate, as I was introducing you at the very beginning and you reiterated yourself, being a coach and a trained therapist, I think is valuable in this arena, because again, we all have our baggage. We all have our stuff that's informing who we are today and how we interact with others and the decisions we make and our behaviors, right? We all have that stuff. And most people, can be armchair psychologists, but they're not trained. They don't know how to deal with past trauma, especially the really serious things that are impacting people today and perhaps holding them back. And I'm a big advocate for people getting therapy, dealing with those things. I do think the social stigma around therapy is thankfully been reducing in recent years, even the last decade or two. So it's more acceptable, I think, socially acceptable for people to be open about their mental health and their traumas and their therapy. And I think all of that's great. I would just urge anyone listening, most people could benefit from actual therapy with an actual therapist.
Yes,
and so coaching is fantastic. Coaching can help us in a lot of ways, but there are things that just can't be addressed with a coach, that you need an actual licensed, trained therapist to help you with. Just like I'm an advocate for mental health medications as appropriate, I'm a big advocate for counseling and therapy, and let's use all of the tools at our disposal to make sure we're as healthy as we can be.
Absolutely. And I think one of the important things I want to point out to the listeners is that most of the people that I work with are at the top of organizations. And there is this expectation that CEOs and folks in the C-suite, they don't have any problems, and they they often do, and need somebody to confide in. Their lives, especially for CEOs, are particularly isolated. That there aren't a lot of people that at that level you can really trust when you move into the position of CEO. So it's very important to have somebody who you can confide in with some of these deeper issues we're talking about and help them overcome it. I had one client, I'll just share a quick story here, who is a very well-known CEO. Obviously, I'm not going to disclose their name. Came to me at the stage in life when they were suicidal, and they worked with me in these, what I call these weekend intensives. I host one-on-one exclusive weekend intensives with CEOs and folks in the C-suite, one-on-one. We devote 48 hours to working through issues, and that they really like that because it doesn't take up an hour a week. It's more like compressed therapy. So in a weekend, you get about a year's worth of therapy done. In that weekend, I think we did 2, and then 2 sessions or 2 weekends. And then a year later, we had been doing these once every month or once every quarter for about a year. And I said to him, he said to me, if this has changed my life, I'm not the same person I was when we first started. And I said, well, let me go back to my original notes and tell you what you said in your first session. And I mentioned, of course, that he was suicidal, and he could not believe that he was in that mindset just a year before, and how much his life had changed, how much of the fears and the past traumas he had overcome in a short period of time. So these sessions are transformational for people. And it's not just personally and professionally transformational, it's also systemically transformational. When I work with CEOs, we're not just healing one person, we're healing a whole system. When somebody oversees an entire system, all the other nervous systems in that environment are pinging off each other. So if you've got a regulated leader who is running the organization, they're going to change how they run the organization from this work, which is very, very satisfying for the client and for me, because I am essentially doing work for sometimes thousands of people, working with one person.
The ripple effects of this work is important.
Yes.
And you've already referred to it a bit, and I appreciate that example. Maybe we can talk a little bit more explicitly about the different types of benefits that can come to leaders through this self-regulation, this discovery, mindset shift, self-regulation of nervous system, so that they can be their best selves, so they can model that kind of health for their teams, and then we can have the maximum impact, the maximum ripple effect that you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, sure. So, some of the things that people typically come to me for, as I mentioned, have to do with past trauma or past stressors in their lives. And what I have known, just as going back to that same example I'm referring to, just to keep it simple, the kinds of things that change are their personal relationships, their professional relationships. They're much more at ease. Most people don't realize they're walking around with an undercurrent of unease. And we don't know any different because it's been with us our whole lives. But when you lift that undercurrent, when a client works with me to lift that undercurrent, the there is this incredible expansion of creativity, of innovation, of strategic thinking that opens up and becomes infinite. So when a system is under stress, you have less access to what we call your prefrontal cortex, right? So that's very important. We can't be working from our primitive brain, the amygdala, which is the other brain we have. And when you're under stress, you have less access to that prefrontal cortex. You're more, making decisions from, again, a place of fear, which is your amygdala, survival. That survival energy it really runs us. So through this work, we release a lot of that and give you more access to your higher order thinking brain, your executive brain, that gives you access to the creativity and the innovation and the strategic thinking that you had, but more of it, far more of it, far less of that fear-based thinking, which right now is very important. Things are, that last year at Davos, they named 2022 the poly crisis year. And I think that I'd argue this is the poly crisis year, 2023. We are going through this right now. So we need more leaders in positions where they are capable of managing their capacity, to increase their capacity to develop more resilience in their nervous systems, to be able to make decisions that are going to continue to be difficult. We aren't designed for the modern world, so we have to work through the compression, the intensity, the what I call the bracing in our bodies, to be able to open up, to have more access to our higher selves. And that's what this work does for people.
So if I am an executive listening today and I'm thinking, oh, this sounds fantastic. Maybe you're a little bit hesitant, a little bit nervous. What would you say to those individuals about first steps, taking the plunge, whatever metaphor you want to use in terms of like starting the process for addressing our own paper tigers and trying to eradicate the being ruled by that illusion of fear?
Yeah, good question. I think everybody's a little bit nervous coming in. I think that's totally normal. So that's the first thing I would say is nervousness is a signal this is something you need. And then I would also say that I don't go right into the heart or right into the center of stress or trauma. This is a process, and it's titrated so that you can function in your daily life. You can go back to work, you can go home and be able to function. The work is done in a way that we work with what your nervous system is capable of, and we build on that. So, that's one thing that I think a lot of other therapists and coaches don't consider is people have to go back to their daily lives after this work. So I pace it so that the client does not have a struggle getting back to their daily lives. And it's all customized. So there's no protocol or this is the order in which we're going to do it. Every person is unique. Every person is different. And their story is different. So the work is truly customized, and we pace it so that it can be integrated, not have it blow back on the person.
Yeah, that's great. And like you said, we all have our daily lives and our stuff that we still have to do and get done.
Yes.
And so we do have to be aware as we're doing this work that, what we do can be disruptive to people and in a good way, ultimately, but you still have the day-to-day as you're trying to change habits, as you're trying to change your approach.
Yes.
You still have to deal with the responsibilities that you have right in front of you. So let's do
That's
it
right.
in a responsible way, do it in a way that will allow people to make the adjustments they need, but also meet the obligations and responsibilities they have.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the healthiest way we can possibly approach it.
It is. And it's the only way, really, because if we do it, if we go past that threshold of resilience, we're not doing it right. the body needs time to integrate it. The mind needs time to integrate it. So we want to stay within what we call the window of resilience, and we want to move past that.
Rebecca, it has just been a pleasure. I note the time. I'm going to have to let you go here in just a minute. But before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Okay. The Paper Tiger Syndrome, How to Liberate Yourself from the Illusion of Fear is available in all bookstores and on Amazon. So feel free to check that out. You can find that also on my website, irisinstitute.com, IRIS, like the flower, institute.com. You can also type in my name. It'll reroute it to the proper website, RebeccaWard.com. And I would just say, reach out to me on my contact page, and we will get some time set up to talk about how I can help support you. I'm also available on all the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram. I don't do TikTok, but LinkedIn. I am Rebecca Ward is my ID or my handle. And my last message that I would say out to everybody is, this is a difficult time. And if you're interested in getting some help and support, I would love to hear from you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. It's been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Rebecca can do for you. Check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page. And please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.